Well, we have breaking and bad news out of Washington, D.C. that will not only affect the rest of America, but probably the rest of the world as well. Via social media, Donald Trump is escalating his painful and unnecessary trade war with Canada, one of our biggest trading partners. And as a consequence, the stock market, which has already been battered by Trump, is now plummeting once again. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, again, stock market has been struggling under Donald Trump, and it's getting worse as a consequence of Donald Trump's capricious trade policy. Let's tariff, let's not tariff, let's tariff, let's walk it back, let's tariff again, let's threaten a tariff. It's not going well. The S&P 500 and other markets are plummeting at the moment, as Tommy Vitor from Pod Save America is noting. MAGA, make America great again, indeed. And why is that? Well, it's because of this truth, the truth or tweet, this post from Donald Trump on his Truth Social website. Based on Ontario, Canada placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States, I've instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% tariff on all steel and aluminum incoming into the United States from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. This will go into effect tomorrow morning, March 12th. Also, Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250 to 390% on various U.S. dairy products, which have long been considered outrageous. I will shortly be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. This will allow the U.S. to quickly do what needs to be done to alleviate this abusive threat from Canada. If other egregious long-time tariffs are not likewise dropped by Canada, I will substantially increase, on April 2nd, the tariffs coming on cars coming into the United States, which will essentially permanently shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada. Those cars can easily be made in the USA. Also, Canada pays very little for national security, relying on the United States for military protection. We are subsidizing Canada to the tune of more than $200 billion a year. Why? This cannot continue. The only thing that makes sense is for Canada to become our cherished 51st state. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear. Canadian taxes will be very substantially reduced, and they will be more secure, militarily and otherwise, than ever before. There would no longer be a northern border problem, and the greatest and most powerful nation in the world would be bigger, better, and stronger than ever, and Canada will be a big part of that. The artificial line of separation drawn many years ago will finally disappear, and we will have the safest and most beautiful nation anywhere in the world. And your brilliant anthem, O Canada, will continue to play, but now representing a great and powerful state with the greatest nation that the world has ever seen. Again, we'll get into how the markets have been reacting and the potential consequences, but the new Canadian Prime Minister, or the new Liberal, rather, I should say, party leader, Mark Carney, recently said this upon his victory.
The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
So yeah, that's the new Canadian Prime Minister, the leader of the Liberal Party, saying that they are continuing their tariffs against America, and that they're going to do so until Donald Trump shows them respect, which I wouldn't hold your breath. So again, between Trump's capriciousness and Canada finding its backbone, we are in for a mutually destructive trade war that, by the way, Trump started. Mark Carney, former Prime Minister Trudeau, it's not their fault. It's Trump's fault. As Brian Krasenstein is pointing out, breaking, in case you're wondering why the Dow just plunged another 400 points, it's because Trump just raised steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada to 50%. Trump said Canada can have the tariffs removed if they become the 51st state. Trump threatened massive tariffs on Canadian automobiles on April 2nd. Trump threatens to declare a national emergency because of Canadian electricity tariffs. In other words, he's destroying our economy. The conservative financial site CNBC, they have written an article about this. Trump raises Canadian steel and aluminum tariffs to 50% in retaliation for Ontario energy duties. Trump said he's ordered his administration to raise tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminums by an additional 25%, bringing the total duties to 50%. Trump said he was imposing the latest tariffs in response to a decision by Ontario's government to slap a 25% tax on electricity exports to the U.S. Trump also repeated his calls for Canada to be absorbed into the U.S. as the 51st state. Markets, already reeling from the impact of Trump's tariffs and broader fears of a recession, sank further after Trump's post. The new policy will go into effect Wednesday morning, Trump said in a Truth Social post. Trump said he was imposing the latest tariffs, blah, blah, blah. That move by Ontario Premier Doug Ford was itself issued in retaliation to the sweeping 25% tariffs that Trump had placed on imports from Canada. So it's not like this was done in a vacuum, okay? Canada is justifiably, understandably retaliating in response to Trump's cruel and capricious and completely unjustified trade war against Canada, our northern neighbors and most reliable trading partner. The Dow Jones Industrial Average extended its losses after Trump's announcement, falling more than 500 points, while the S&P 500 dropped and the NASDAQ composite fell as well. Markets are already reeling from the impact of Trump's tariffs and broader fears of recession. Minutes after Trump's announcement, Ford said he would keep his countermeasure on U.S. policy in place. Quote, "We will not back down. We will be relentless. I apologize to the American people that Trump decided to have an unprovoked attack on our country, our families, on jobs, and it's unacceptable." Trump imposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico in early February before delaying them for 1 month and then reimposing them and then partially delaying them again. Ford has vowed to keep Ontario's tariff in place despite Trump's latest reprieve. Quote, "I'm not too sure why he continues to attack his closest friends and allies, but we need the American people to speak up. We need those CEOs to actually get a backbone and stand in front of him and tell him this is going to be a disaster. It's mass chaos right now." Separately, in Tuesday's post, Trump demanded that Canada immediately drop its anti-American farmer tariff. Again, we went through the post itself. Trump, who frequently praises tariffs as an economic multi-tool, has hyped April 2nd as the date he will impose widespread reciprocal tariffs on other countries that have their own duties. Trump's on-again, off-again tariffs on Canada and Mexico have inflamed tensions with both U.S. neighbors, but they have stoked special ire in Canada, where movements have sprung up to boycott U.S. products and political leaders have forcefully denounced Trump's trade war. Former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau directly accused Trump of trying to weaken his country in order to make it easier to annex. So, folks, this is where we are. It is a total disaster, and it's one of Trump's own making. Again, whether you like it or not, and facts don't care about your feelings, the fact of the matter is that when it came to macroeconomic metrics, the same macroeconomic metrics that macroeconomists, both Republican and Democrat, liberal and conservative, have used to evaluate the national economy, Trump inherited a very good economy from President Biden. Period. Just like in 2017, he inherited a very good economy from President Obama. And we are now seeing for the second time in a row that Trump is taking a good inheritance and driving it into the ground out of spite and stupidity and this, authoritarian strongman need to beat his chest even when it is not in good sense to do so. And we are seeing a mass revolt, not from necessarily elected Republicans, but from Trump's allies in right-wing media on Fox and CNBC and elsewhere. And we're going to be discussing that in videos because it merits attention. We need to see the reaction from people who aren't just conservative, but are staunch Trump allies, publicly panicking about this. But there you have it. Once again, Donald Trump is battering the stock market. He is battering the U.S. economy. It's not just the stock market. Inflation is skyrocketing on Trump's watch, even though it was declining under President Biden. We are seeing increasing signs of a Trump recession. It's important to remember that 10 out of the last 11 recessions began under Republican administration, so they've cornered the market in that respect. And Democrats need to be relentless in hammering that message home. Do not assume that facts will speak for themselves. Make sure you ruthlessly and persistently and consistently, with one voice, elected Democrats and their allies in media, mainstream or otherwise, consistently and relentlessly in one voice, draw the connection for the American people so that Trump and the Republican Party will accrue a political price during the next election. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.